Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to introduce a well-known personality, the DCGI, Drugs Control General of India, Dr. Rajeev Raghuvanshi ji. Please welcome him. It's my pleasure to introduce him to all of you. I'll just give a brief background of Dr. Rajeev Raghuvanshi ji. He has completed his bachelor's and master's from IIT BHU, Varanasi, and PhD from National Institute of Immunology, New Delhi. His PhD work was in the area of extended release formulation of vaccines, a project conceptualized to help reduce the number of injections required to be given for complete immunization. He has also done advanced management program from ISB Kellogg Global. After completing 7 years of work with National Institute, New Delhi, National Institute of Immunology, New Delhi, Dr. Rajeev moved to join a leading Indian pharmaceutical company, multinational, Ranbaxy Laboratories, where he worked for development, registration, and launch of NDDS, generics, and branded generics in various global markets. After completing stint of 12 years, he again moved from Ranbaxy to Dr. Reddy's Laboratory in Hyderabad, where he worked for 11 years, and his first 8 years was in the development of NDA products for US market. In this role, he successfully led the CMC team to get 6 products approved in first review cycle by US FDA. During the tenure, he had opportunity to multiple face-to-face interactions with US FDA, MHRA, and agencies from South Korea, Sweden, Romania, etc. The last 3 years of his tenure with Dr. Reddy's was a different role of establishing an R&D team for markets like India, China, Russia, and other emerging markets in the space of pharmaceutical product innovation and differentiation, registration, and launches. He has widely traveled throughout the world and has worked with team members and partners in countries like USA, UK, China, Russia, South Africa, Romania, Sweden, Canada, France, Australia, and Japan. Dr. Raghuvanshi's expertise lies in dosage for design and development, mainly in the domain of pharmaceutical innovation. He has been involved in development of different kinds of products like oral solids, oral liquids, topical injections, nasal sprays, auto-injectors, and those kind of products. He has developed more than 200 products by him, and his teams are currently being sold in India, US, Europe, and emerging markets. So after a very successful career with corporate pharma, he decided to do something completely different, which is socially more impactful. Of many possibilities, he chose to work with Government of India and joined Government's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare as Secretary-cum-Scientific Director of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission on 16 February 21. He is still holding that position as director. In a short stint of 2 years, he changed the face of IPC and brought multiple long-lasting changes impacting quality standards for medicines being sold in India, cultural shift to more open and receptive organizations, scaling up the impunity standards, inventory harmonization of quality specifications with ICH and global standards. Recently in 2023, Government of India gave him a responsibility of Drugs Controller General of India. He joined the new position on 23rd February 2023 and working towards changing the way Indian pharmaceutical regulation is looked in this country and beyond. When Dr. Raghuvanshi ji joined as head of CDSCO. CDSCO, many of you may not know, it's a Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, the Indian drug regulatory body. CDSCO is responsible for regulation, manufacturing, sales, export and import of all medicines, vaccines, cosmetics and medical devices in India. Just imagine the kind of responsibility he is shouldering. When he took over as DCGI, Indian pharma industry was rocked by a scandal related to tinted cup syrup. Most of you might be aware. This has happened in 2023. That tinted cup syrup that allegedly caused child deaths in Uzbekistan and Gambia. Many of us have read this news. When he took over, Dr. Raghuvanshi ji, with his team, CDSCO team, shut down dozens of non-compliant pharma manufacturing units and brought digital interface to cut down physical interactions with pharma companies. This is a big change he has done in CDSCO, and it is in the direction of patient care. Please understand that. It's very important. He is instrumental in bringing revised Schedule M for good manufacturing practices to improve quality and safety of pharma manufacturing in India. He also holds the additional charge of Secretary-cum-Scientific Director of the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. Under his leadership, the CDSCO has intensified crackdowns on substandard and counterfeit drugs and improved pharma vigilance systems. I am proud to share that currently KAIZEN Institute and my team is working in CDSCO under his guidance to improve the patient care and by improving the internal processes of CDSCO. I am happy to present Dr. Raghuvanshi ji. I request him to come on stage to deliver his keynote. Please welcome Dr. Raghuvanshi ji.
Good morning. Thank you. Pleasure to be here, the beautiful city of Pune, beautiful hotel, beautiful delegates. I wanted to start with thanking organizers, Mr. Grover, Mr. Jayant, his team, and of course, this learned audience for giving me this opportunity to come and share some of my learnings of last maybe 30 years. I have spent in different roles with Indian Pharma. I also wanted to congratulate the KAIZEN team for holding this 14th KAIZEN Congress and also for completing 25 years in India. So I think they deserve a big hand. So I always start my address with letting the audience know that I am a very proud head of National Regulatory Agency of a country which supplies 40% of generic medicines in US. I'm very proud to be head of the National Regulatory Agency for a country which supplies 25% of all the medicines consumed in UK, which supplies more than 60% of global vaccine demands, and also which supplies more than 90% of medicines consumed in many small countries in this world. And this has actually given us, for right reasons, the title of Pharmacy of the World. And It has made us more responsible. Our responsibility has increased towards the global public health because what we have done in pharma for last so many years. And I'm sure many of you and maybe all of you know more than me in the management domain. I'm basically by training a scientist, a development scientist in pharmaceuticals. And we know that you know better than me that reaching at top may be difficult, but sustaining that position becomes more difficult. And we are at that situation today in this country that we have to sustain that top position, not for any increase in trade value or business profits, but because it's our responsibility towards global public health. And that's basically has become passion for many in this domain. Like there are people like me who actually left one life for this new life, did lots of compromises, but at the end of the day, we feel happy that we are contributing directly to for the benefit of health of this country, this beautiful country, and beyond. So just to set the context, today the trade value which India has in pharma is about 60 billion US dollars, which is divided between the exports and domestic almost 50-50. And we, as I said, that we need to do everything to keep that position at the top. We have to bring lots of management principles to increase the efficiency, to increase productivity at every level and at every part of the value chain of pharma in this country. Be it manufacturing units, be it research, be it regulators. Wherever we are working, we have to see that we increase our efficiency, we increase our productivity. So ultimately it gets added to what we do and reach where we want to reach. The projection for this country from 60 billion US dollars to 130 billion dollars in next 5 years by 2020 and about 250 billion US dollars by 2047 when the government has put this target of becoming a developed nation. So coming to the theme of this morning, this KAIZEN Congress, leadership, especially to manage the change. And leadership is one area or one topic which probably would have been discussed most in this world by different people, by different forums. You have thousands of colleges discussing different theories. So I'm not going into the basics of leadership, the concepts of leadership, because I am sure that you all are conversant with that. What I have planned for today is to share some of my experiences and my learnings in different setup, which might help you get some food for thought and maybe build upon that at your level. So again, just to set the context, we know that leadership is actually the ability to influence a group of people to achieve a common goal. Well, that's the basic definition of leadership which we always talk about. But what I have seen that is more important for a leader is, and leadership is, that this is a very contextual phenomenon. What I mean by being a contextual phenomenon is that if you are a true leader, you have to change as per the context of the organization, country, team, wherever you are working as a leader. The most important thing for your delivery is the context in which we are working. And that is why I say that it's a contextual phenomenon. Sometimes we have to lead from front. Sometimes we have to leave the team for someone else to lead and just watch from back. Leadership required for R&D organization is completely different from leadership required for marketing organization. Leadership required for innovation is completely different from leadership required for operational management. And of course, when we do change management, the leadership required may be different. But common thread among all this is that there are some basic principles of leadership which remain common. And what changes is some traits, some concepts which are more required in a particular context than others. And that is the differentiator between the success and failure of a leader. That how quick we can grasp and we can identify that what is that additional leadership trait we have to bring in this particular context to be successful and to take the organization to the next level for the job which we have been brought in here. So we have to understand one thing very clearly, that pharma is one world which is changing so fast that every other day the context of pharma changes. And I repeatedly bring this word context because for me, I have experienced it that unless until we identify that specific context, it is very difficult for anybody to be successful. So we say that when context changes, the content also has to change. And this is where lots of people fail to identify that context has changed, so they have to bring the change in content also. So there are people and there are leaders who keep the content same, whereas the context has changed completely from where we started. And that is one very important connection and understanding of leader which is required to identify every moment of changing context and keep changing your content accordingly. And then that's basically where you will bring that connection with the team, the connection with the ground reality, and then you can act and devise your strategy to be successful for that organization. So historically, if I see, so before that, one thing which, the first change which I think I brought in this, the organizations, two organizations which I worked in, Government of India, was accepting that there are areas where we don't know many things. And that is one of the big shift which these organizations did in terms of accepting our gaps, accepting our failures, and accepting that these are the areas where we need to improve. And probably that shift has led to all the successes, whatever we could bring in under my leadership in these two organizations. Historically, if you see the Indian history, when we started as independent India, we were actually scarce in these resources. And at that point of time, the responsibility of the government was to arrange for resources, to see that how the population of this country, people of this country get what is required to survive, what is required to survive and grow and take this country to the next level. So at that point of time, whatever was required to be done to provide for the population was the responsibility of the government. When we got successful there, then it became a journey of growth where it became the responsibility of government, where we call it provisioning. So after providing, the phase came for provisioning, where government got involved into identifying that which is the most important growth area for us, where should we put resources, where should we bring what kind of leadership. So that was a provisioning time. And of late, later, maybe next, last 15, 20 years, we have actually come to a stage where we have started looking towards becoming a developed country. And now the government is gearing up or has geared up to see how do we move to become a developed country by 2047, and then all the responsibilities related to that, where a lot of the government's responsibility has shifted towards collaborating with partners who are not from the government, collaborating with private partners, private industry, consultants like KAIZEN, BCGs of the world, McKinsey's of the world, which is a completely new shift in the government working. And this has more happened from the time of COVID, which unfortunately was a difficult time for us, but that also added lots of positive energy in the system. And one of the biggest contribution of COVID for this country and maybe for the world is towards collaboration. That was the first time when anybody would have seen government talking to industry on daily basis. Daily morning, ministers, secretaries of the government of India would talk personally to pharma companies, take the stock of what is the inventory of this drug today, how will you make it for tomorrow. So that was the kind of collaboration which was actually observed during COVID period. And that was completely unforeseen. That was completely unimaginable because we were a defensive country. For government interacting with the business was sort of untouchable. No, so that's not we should do, because people will start pointing fingers that we are collaborating with industry. But that has completely changed. But problem comes where within government there are organizations which still are not understanding this shift from a position of providing to provisioning to collaboration. And this is where, as government leaders, it's our responsibility to make that shift in the organization. And whatever we are doing currently at CDSCO, you will see some of the examples with the help of KAIZEN also, is trying to shift that mindset from maybe providing, there are some corners still in the mindset of providing, or maybe from provisioning to ultimately a collaborating mode. So I'll start with, there are so many concepts and there are so many qualities which are available on internet. I'm sure you all would have seen that these are the qualities of leaders. I'm not getting into it. Somebody says 7 E's, somebody says 4 C's, somebody says 5 D's. Now, whatever it is, everything is available and you can go through that, not investing time on that. But I would certainly bring out some of the qualities of leaders which I have seen, which is very important in the context where I worked and whatever success I got, both in corporate and in the government setup, with some examples which might help you. So looking at the current context of the government, leadership in government sector, the first and foremost quality which for me, and I think for every government servant, is integrity. In a government setup where you have all the powers to stop or allow things to happen, there are every opportunities and every tool available in the hands of your partner or your collaborator to, if I can say a very strong word, to corrupt you. And unless until you are a very strong integrity person, it is very difficult for you to survive. And there are examples in my organization and in practically every organization where if people have compromised on integrity, their everything is lost. If I see whatever success I have got in the last 4.5 years in this government, the only reason I could survive was my integrity. The only reason. Rest everything, your intelligence, your collaborative efforts, and everything, whatever qualities of leaders are there, it is common, people will have, many leaders have. But unless until I feel that if I was not strong in integrity, I would not have been successful in this organization. The biggest strength which you get from being a person of integrity is the freedom to work. You do not have to think twice in taking any decision because you are not for or against anybody. And you can take your decisions free. And that is something which is most important for any leader's success, especially in government setup. And this is my personal experience of last 4+ years, where I have been able to change the complete mindset in a very short time which was given to me. And that all is because I had no agenda with me. I had nobody who was favorite, or I had nobody who I did not like. What I liked was, we have come here to contribute. Work is our responsibility. So that is our primary goal. We have to do what we are here for. And unfortunately, in many setups, we find that today, it's not there. And integrity is not only financial integrity. Financial integrity is just one part of it. Integrity is also defined as whatever you do or whatever you are supposed to do, you are actually doing that. That is also part of your integrity. And you find many people in government especially, which is a big advantage when we were in corporate. And that is the reason why the alignment happens very quickly in many organizations. Because there is a common goal and there is sort of, if I can say, insecurity that if you don't do this, there are repercussions. You are accountable for something. Unfortunately, in government setup, a lot of people come with this mind that once I am in, then nobody can throw me out. And that, if you are not balanced and if you are not having integrity, you actually tend to derail from what is your actual responsibility. So first, and integrity is very important, maybe more important in government setup, but it is actually holding a very strong position, a very strong quality for any leader in any setup. Second, very important thing which I see in any setup, which is actually not very common or not very commonly seen, is your ability to take decisions. How quick you can take decision which may be difficult many times, which has far-reaching implications, which are sensitive. And if you see the government bureaucracy, the bureaucracy is actually trained to take decisions at a spur of a moment. And that is what is training, the major part of the bureaucrat's training. And sometimes it becomes little toxic also to one extreme when people start thinking that only I can take the right decision, whatever I say is right. And then the collaborative efforts get compromised. But we are not getting into that. But for any success in any leadership role, for me, the decision-making capability is equally important at the top. If you are not capable of taking decisions, I have seen lots of leaders fail only because they are not able to take the right decisions at the right time. And then the whole organization starts faltering. If I can take one example in the interest of time, there are many. one of the most talked about, if people from pharma are sitting here, one of the most noise creating activity of CDSCO today is risk-based inspections, RBIs, as we call in short form. This is one thing which has brought the whole industry's gaps, weaknesses, strengths in front of everybody. Every stakeholder now knows that where the improvement has to happen. In short, what did we do? We created a framework to identify risky organizations, create a team, I would say capable team, to go and audit them against a checklist and submit an honest report. And whatever issues we were facing, we still face. I don't say that we have completely corrected it, but the achievement is that the needle has started moving, which had actually got rotten in last so many 50, 55, 60 years of the way we were governing. And this is exactly one of the examples where the context had changed, but we did not change. The content did not change. We were still regulating the way we used to maybe 15, 20, 40 years ago, but the industry had moved to a level where CAR-T therapies are being approved, and we are struggling today to make industries learn how to make paracetamol. So a big disconnect in the system, and somebody had to correct that. So risk-based inspection is one, and where the decision making is important here is the first one which we actually did, and there was a heavy pushback from the industry that no. And before that, the thinking was that inspections is not CDSCO's responsibility, it is state regulators' responsibility. Whereas it is not true. As per regulation, any inspector can go and audit, be center or the state. But that was the practice which was happening. And when at one of the bigger centers or in a state where lots of maybe 600 companies are there, when my team went there, there was that we will not let you enter. And team called me that this is the situation here. There is a gathering of some 50, 60 people, and they are saying that they will not let you. This guy was some office bearer of the Association of Manufacturers in that place. So I had to take a decision then and there that what is my next step. And I think that is one of the best decisions which I have taken in my life. And I said that we are not coming back, come what may. We have reached there to do inspection. We will complete inspection, and then only I will move out from there. From 9 a.m. in the morning to 2 p.m. in the afternoon, they did not let my team in. And local authorities were also calling and trying to convince that no, please withdraw your team, because it's the person is very resourceful, it's a balwa ho jayega and whatnot. I said, whatever happens, my team is not coming back, because I knew that if the team comes back, that's end of it, I cannot do anything. And ultimately, we had to do some back-end maneuvering, and at 2 p.m. they let us in the premises. And in the premises, when we were there, it was all eye-opener. The things, whatever was happening, was completely unacceptable. That company had to be stop production ordered. Same day we closed that company. But that one decision till today is paying us, that we are doing risk-based inspections. We have completed more than 1,000 inspections in last two years. And that has given us an understanding of the ground reality of the industry in this country. And we could actually do that. And related many decisions which we took was actually dependent on this one decision, which if we could not have taken that day, probably I don't know what would have, it would have been a completely different context. That one decision changed the whole context of this pharma industry in this country. And if you have any information about this domain, people today talk a lot positive about RBI, We had lots of pushback, lot of opposition from the industry owners. And today the same owners are saying that probably this was the best thing which happened for the industry. Because serious players understood the relevance of what we did. Non-serious players today also oppose it. But they have become minority today. At one point, when we took that decision, they were in majority. So that is the importance of taking decisions at right time. The third quality of a leader is being humble. I have seen very toxic leaders, successful but toxic. And it depends on how you define success. For some, success is your salary package. For some, success is your position. But for me, success is what outcome is actually coming out of the actions which we do. When we are dealing with public health in the current responsibility, how good I can impact, how good I can change the lives of people through our decision is my success. So I have seen toxic leaders who shout in lobby just to show that I'm powerful. And I tell to my team members that if you are leader or if you are manager, this is the first thing which is granted, that you have power. You don't have to show your power. You have to be humble, because people know that you are head of R&D, or you are DCGI, or you are deputy drug controller. People know what is your authority. People know that if you want, you can stop production in any manufacturing unit. But for that, you don't have to stand at the crossing on the road and start shouting that I am DCGI or I am DDC. If you don't respect, I will do this, I will do that. There are people who do that. I always say that if you have to say no, you don't need to shout at the person to say no. The strength of no is more when you are humbly but very firmly saying that no, it cannot be done. And I have practiced it myself. Lots of people come to me that please allow this, which is not possible as per regulation, or maybe because of whatever reasons. And I simply say that this is just not possible, period. No discussion beyond that. Because the moment you go on extending discussions, it becomes very difficult for you to manage that. For leaders, you have to learn to say no, which I have seen personally many leaders hesitate to say no. They just want everybody to keep in good humor. And that, if you start doing that, you cannot be a good leader. You will never be successful if you are not knowing how to say no formally. So please go on net. There are very interesting case studies on this specific, very small phrase, how to say no. Read that. I mean, it will open your eyes. So be humble, but be firm if you have to be a successful leader. We also have to understand, I mean, related part is that leadership is a successful leader is always, he leads through influence. He doesn't lead through power. He doesn't lead through authority. That you have to do because DCGI is telling you. No. You have to lead through influence. The person has to understand that why he cannot do this. And then he will collaboratively work as per your advice, your leadership, and your instructions. So that's the difference between leader and manager. When you lead, there are people who follow you. But when you manage, people do the minimum required thing. They will not do more than minimum required. Especially in drug regulatory system, we say that companies will improve if they stop working or developing products for regulator. If they start developing product for patients, that day everything will get corrected. But the issue is that companies develop product for regulator, not for patient. They will do that minimum required as per regulation to keep the regulatory system happy. And there is the main issue which comes in. The day we realize that our responsibility is not towards the regulator, but our responsibility is toward patient, everything gets corrected. And then you have to have the qualities of aspects like confidence. A leader, howsoever humble he or she is, the confidence speaks. Being humble doesn't mean that you are weak. People understand the power of humbleness also. Confidence actually comes at your face when you are humble but firm. And what happens that if a team has a confident leader, the whole team's spirit improves. Because they get some kind of kick from internal that my leader is like this. And I have seen this happening when I used to be team member and my leader used to be very confident. He could, or he can go at any forum and speak the truth or the content, the right technical matter. We used to be so happy. And we used to discuss that, see, he is our leader. And he used to become our somebody to follow, somebody to emulate. And exactly I have seen when I became leader, I get this feedback from many of my team members. Sir, we feel proud to work with you because XYZ. This is the reason. So that's the confidence which changes the complete dynamics of the team and the organization. And you will find, you just scan the whole world, the leaders who are successful, they have this one common thread among all of them, that humble, confidence, integrity, decision making, everything. Otherwise, they will never be successful. And of course, in the contemporary world, a successful leader has to be somebody who has contemporary thinking and future vision. When I say contemporary thinking, I'll give you a couple of examples. That in our system, when I became DCGI, and I was just looking, because I was on the other side of the table earlier, so I knew a lot of the organization works, the gaps, where the improvement area, what can be done. So I had pretty understanding of the system. I also had some thinking that what I can do, where I would need help from others. But one thing very interesting which comes is that for being a successful leader, you have to have a mission which is bigger than your ambition. And this is relevant in any context, but it has to be contemporary. In today's world, I have to have a mission which is relevant to the organization, and that mission has to be bigger than my ambition. So for leaders, individuality has no place. It is given that as an individual you will be successful. If you are a successful leader, you will be successful as an individual also. And that is why you create a mission for yourself, and that should become everybody's mission. The whole team has to get aligned. If for CDSCO, taking this organization to the next level, or being competent to approve the latest technology products, or maybe make it an organization with very high integrity. These are the missions where your individual basically ambition has no place. They themselves gets diluted and just wanes off. So, and for doing that, the leaders create different kind of slogans. I still remember when I was in Reddy's, so last 3 years I was given a responsibility to develop a new R&D for emerging markets, global emerging markets. So there was a discussion going on that what should be the name of this team. And everybody was, maybe for a week everybody was thinking that, no, this is not right. This should be the concept. This should be the way we should think. And one evening I was just sitting and thinking, and a very simple thought came in my mind, that this new R&D has responsibility towards branded generics, because the emerging market is branded generic. It is not basically discovery-led market. So it's basically branded generics. You have to develop your brand. And the mandate was that we need to go for pharmaceutical innovation. So there was branded and there was innovation. And it was very simple. If you take the initial 2-3 letters, it becomes brain. Branded, B-R-A from branded, and I-N from innovation, both together becomes brain. And brain as such is a symbol of thinking, and you cannot do innovation unless until you apply your brain. And that kicked, and till today, that team is called brain. And the whole organization actually rallied behind that. A simple one word, but was actually giving a message that what this team is for and what is expected from this team. So sometimes very simple thinking, if you remove the clutter, you get very interesting concepts which helps you for your life. Similarly, in CDSCO, though we have not advertised it big, but the way we are currently working is with a motto where we want to make the regulations lighter and executions heavy. So we call it lighter on regulation, heavy on execution, which actually tells us that we have to, when we say that we have to make our regulation lighter, means we have to forego many things which are not relevant in today's context. Our act is 1940, our rule is 1945. Lots of amendments have happened in between, especially in the rule domain, but still the basic DNA is 1940-45. And at that point in time, it was regulatory-driven system, because the context was different. Today, unless until we re-look at that and remove the flab, remove non-added activities which we do, we will keep on struggling, because resource is always limited. Resource is one thing in this world, in any setup. You can never have everything which you want, and you have to strategize. In government, that's more relevant, because not because we do not have resources, but we have systems and regulations and procedures where to create one position, you may require 7 years, because I don't know how many tables the file has to cross and how many justifications have to go. And there are so many touch points that anybody can put a spanner and you are gone. So you have to strategize that whatever you have, within that, what is the maximum, most optimal you can use. And that is why we are saying that be lighter on regulation, remove things which you don't think are relevant in today's context, or maybe less relevant in today's context. And that's what we are doing today. And Kaizen is probably, I'm sure the team knows some of our efforts and decisions which we have taken to remove that we will not do this. And we will, whatever resource we create, that resource will be used for more value-added work. So that's basically on the contemporary thinking and having vision. And there are lots of examples. I don't want to get into those examples that what did we do, but in the interest of time. But we did take lots of decisions where we said that we don't want this license to be there in the system. There is no relevance of this license, giving this license today. For example, T licenses, people who are conversant with pharma. We ask for T licenses. You have to take permission from regulator for doing anything in pharma. Even if you're doing a research, trying to synthesize a molecule, you have to come and ask that, can I do that? And then we have that power and maybe some satisfaction that I have to say yes, that yes, you can do research. I don't know what for. At one point in time, it was probably required because I don't know what was the context then. But today, that is not required. Give that freedom to people to do research, to innovate. Intervene when the safety becomes more important for you, and that is the time when it goes to human trials. Then you should actually get into it as a regulator and see that whatever goes into human is safe. Then you put that issue of licensing and permission and all that. So we said that, okay, we should remove this. Similarly, there are many examples where we said that we don't want to do this. In another quality of leader, especially in organizations like CDSCO and IPC, or for that matter, an organization where technical content is the main responsibility. So there what happens is that if the leader has the technical understanding, the job becomes easier. Many times we have seen organizations failing, the whole organization getting failed and closed down because the leadership was not technical, was not understanding the relevance of technicalities. The decisions was being taken based on the administrative trainings and teachings, which was completely disconnected from the ground reality. And in mature organizations, somebody can say that how does TCS and TISCO and telco work, where the CEO is not a technical person, may not be a technical person, he may be a management graduate. But there are mature organizations where there are people who honestly lead the technical part. Their contribution to his or her manager is honest towards the good of the organization. So in those mature organizations, it is possible that a non-technical person can also lead based on their acumen and the honest feedback of their team. But there are many organizations where that maturity has not come. And there is a potential of wrong feedback also being given to the leader. And then the issue happens. So you have to be very careful if you have an opportunity to identify a leader for an organization. Like boards, I'm sure some of you are board members also. You have, so many times you get that responsibility of identifying the right leader for the organization. And there many times we fail because we don't understand the sensitivity of bringing the relevant leader in the right context. I'll give a very interesting example here. It's my own example. And I can take name of the company because I admire that company because that has shaped my life and my professional life at least. So before coming to government, I was with Reddy's for 11 years. And around 2020 or late 90s, there was a time when R&D leadership was to be selected in Reddy's. And the board was looking for the right candidate. So they hired an international agency, and it was an international search, where internal candidates were also allowed to apply. And till then, we used to think that R&D means the leadership should be from R&D, because this is R&D. A non-R&D person, what will he or she do in R&D? And the grapevine was that I was most potent candidate and I should be the next R&D head. We prepared, we faced the interviews, all the multiple cycles, met with all the board members. When the result came, the person who was selected was not from the pharma domain. He was a McKinsey analyst. The strength was the data analytics, right? And I personally was very disturbed because I went up to the last round and I was, practically everybody was saying that you are going to be selected. So I went to the CEO of the company. And that was possible, and that is possible in companies where there is open culture, that I can go and ask that why I was not selected and why somebody who is not even from R&D is selected as head of the R&D organization. And the response which I got opened my eyes that how people sitting at top think about the organization. The response was that you not getting selected doesn't mean that you are not competent for that job. The reason why somebody from non-pharma background, from non-R&D background is selected, because in today's context, the need for the organization is taking the organization to the level, next level for in the domain of data analytics. That how do I use R&D data? How do I do modeling? How do I bring theoretical concepts into R&D to cut down on the timeline of development, to take decisions which are more data-based? How can we take more risk without doing practical work? And then I could understand that how true that was. Because in so many years, a lot of good things happened in Reddy's. The R&D was very strong. The scientists were very strong. But in that whole dynamics, we became more focused about doing experiments, getting the data out of that, and taking decisions based on only practical experimentation. But world had moved. And at that context, the global R&D where we saw more successes, there people were using more data analytics. They were doing lots of modeling to come to a conclusion, not only the practical data. You do 10% of the experiment, 90% could be from using this 10% data, do modeling and come to a conclusion. So that was the reason why somebody with that background was bought, and the scientists were not selected. And that actually convinced me. And I was happy to learn something which I never knew, rather than getting frustrated that, and from that day, my frustration went out of the system because I understood that what was the reason why I was not selected. So, another important aspect is, of course, on the transparency, and there are other qualities like communication. You should have very good communication if you have to connect with your people, with your customers, your stakeholders. All those things are basically understood. Your customer centricity, whatever you do, you have to do it for your customer. The customer could be external, customer could be internal. In current organization, in every organization, you have internal customer and external customer both. And you have to see that your team members, your internal stakeholders are all your internal customers. You have to see that you satisfy your internal customer and external customer both. And at the same time, communicate properly what you are doing. There are lots of people who do a lot of good work, but they are not able to communicate properly with the stakeholders, and then the impact goes down, gets reduced. So, I think in the interest of time, at the end, I just wanted to touch upon, Kaizen is working with CDSCO, and that is another decision which we took, is something shows also the importance of decision making. So Kaizen is one organization which we bought looking at the need for this kind of organization. My organization was working, was approving, was issuing licenses, everything was fine. But what I saw was there was huge scope of improvement in the way we work. Maybe whatever we are doing, that 100% of work, can be done with 50% of resources which we currently use for doing that work. So who is the person or which is the organization who can actually help us improve the processes, internal processes? And then we identified that Kaizen is one. And happy to say that Kaizen has actually worked for the last more than 6 months with us. And they have brought perceptible changes in the system. And the best part with Kaizen is that initially there was some pushback from internal stakeholders. Because in every system there is many a times some insecurity is there. But their way of working is very interesting. And today, the people who interact with them and people who do not interact with them, everybody is actually recognizing the contribution of Kaizen in my system. That is probably the best thing for us. This morning only I wrote to some of my senior colleagues that can you give me quickly some points which you think that Kaizen has contributed, right? Because they are the guys who are most impacted. So I will just read out some 5, 6 of them, which actually fresh from oven, maybe 1 hour before people sent me. There are many more, but in the interest of time, I will just read out 6 of them. So one they say is they have actually brought close interaction between the teams and among team members and senior management through daily Kaizen and steering committee meetings. And this one change which has happened has actually brought completely new energy into the system. So people were not talking to each other before. They had no platform to interact. Everybody was working like an individual. And I knew that this research, that how much time should be there, discussion happened with me, team members, everybody. And they decided on a common framework that this is the way approvals will happen, this much time should be taken. And now every team, practically every team is actually following a common framework. So it has brought a lot of uniformity in working. So for me, one of the bigger contribution of Kaizen in CDSCO is coming out with a digital dashboard, which is not something very novel, but it was not there in our system. Though we have a digital system called Sugam where all applications happen, but we had no consolidated dashboard showing the work which everybody is doing. So today, we have a dashboard that every level, right from the first level drug inspector or assistant drug inspector up to DCGI, we have in front of our screen that how many files you have for how many days pending with you. And the color coding, the way we do in corporates, red, green, yellow, orange, whatever it is. So that actually has brought a completely new system. So now all of a sudden, everybody has the understanding and knowledge of what they are sitting up with how many files for how many days. And that has brought complete change in the system. I see on daily basis, almost 3 times more files are coming for approval. And that change, I was initially surprised that how is it happening on daily, so many files are coming. And then when I saw and when I did some analysis, it's actually impact of that dashboard. Because people are also now worried that they will be asked questions. Because one very big change which I brought when I came, I started asking questions to people, which was surprise to my team members right from the beginning, from first level, that how can somebody ask questions in this system? Whatever we are doing is right. Nobody should ask questions that why did I do this? What is the justification for this? What is the justification for raising 5 queries? Nobody has asked us. But the moment they understood that no, it's a new system, they are now accountable, they are now responsible for responding to questions, things change immediately. Because Indian brain is very smart. So they actually very quickly adjust to the environment. And if they don't, then they also know that there are ways to deal with that. So that is another big contribution. Another big contribution is bringing a concept of tooltip, right? So what we used to see that there were lots of administrative queries being raised one after other by the reviewer to the applicant. And many of them were just administrative queries that this document is not there, this information is not there, you should do this. And more than 50% of queries were all administrative, which could have been solved just based on if the applicant understands that what to be done, what has to be done, they will do it immediately. But nobody was correcting that, because everybody was happy the way it was going on. But then we brought the concept of tooltip, where now when you are going to submit a document or a form filling, you have an icon, a tooltip flashes, and then in that tooltip there is written advisory that for this, what is expected from you, what documents you need to submit, what should be the content of that document. And that has brought a lot of changes at the applicant's level. A lot of clarity is there in the system now. Also helps internally that you cannot play with words and information that somebody says do this, somebody says do that. Now it's standardized. You are expected to do this and move ahead. And I'm sure this will reduce the number of queries. Another feedback is that Kaizen helped us in identifying gaps between the way of functionality between different licensing divisions. So we have multiple divisions. So your working brought a lot of harmonization in the system. There was now the discussions started across the divisions also, that how are you tackling this problem, how are you reviewing this file. So at least for me as a leader in the organization, one of the good things which has happened is that we have shown mirror to people that this is what you are at, and we have been successful in letting people know that there are concepts of collaboration, there are concepts of discussion, there are concepts of approaching people to clarify your doubt. You cannot think that I know everything and whatever I am doing is right. And of course, the strength of Kaizen, that you identify, as you said, the non-value-add activities. You said some Japanese word for that, muda. You identify muda and remove it from the system. And that is helping us a lot. Right from physical files to processes. So wherever there is waste, you remove it, right? Keep only what is useful. And at the end, just one small incident yesterday happened with me. And I'm so happy that organizations like Kaizen make you think about process improvement day in, day out. It becomes way of your life. And that should be the moment you see something, and you should be able to immediately map the process and see where the gunk work is happening and where there is an opportunity to improve. Yesterday when I was in flight, I was coming from Delhi to Pune. My co-passenger was an American gentleman who was actually a process improvement consultant. Not from Kaizen, but he knew Kaizen and everything. And when we landed in Pune, so we talked a lot about process improvement, how does it happen in China, US, India, and all that. But the best part was when we landed, and he was watching outside the window, and he immediately turns around me and says that, look how efficient that process is. There are 5 people pulling a trolley for this luggage to come out from the plane. And I think that can be done with only 3 people. That the 2 guys standing there, they are useless. They are not contributing what they should. So that should be the spirit when you work in the process improvement area, which I think everybody should be in their sphere of influence. The moment you look at what you are doing and the moment you identify an improvement area, you should immediately raise that flag and look for people who can help you in executing that. With this, I'll end it here. Thanks a lot. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.